Hi folks, Six Slices here. There's another knife in my high-end series. This is another Shirogorov. This particular one is interesting for a couple of reasons. The first one is it's a nice little knife. It's a good size. It's a little on the smaller side than many of the Shirogorovs that I've shown you. This is probably more pocketable and carryable than most. It is in itself a nice knife, but its other claim to fame is the chap that owns all of these knives in my high-end series, or at least most of them, is this was his first Shirogorov. He'd had knives before that, but this is the first time he had a really high-end Russian knife, and it kind of started his love affair with these things. And I hate to think how many he's got now. We've seen many of them on here, but not all of them. And I could count them back and look at the videos, but there are quite a few Shirogorov videos on this site. All of that being said, this isn't one of my favourites. It is a nice knife. It's a Shirogorov. It's a little on the small and thin side, which with my clumsy hands makes it probably the hardest Shirogorov to open that I've handled to date. Now, it wouldn't be a problem for anybody else. It's just a problem for me. And it's mainly down to the fact it's size. But its size in the same time would make it more carryable. And because it has a carbon fibre front scale and just a carbon fibre inlay on the reverse, it's actually quite a light knife to carry. So it would make a very good everyday carry knife. Again, of course, it locks, so that's a problem. But I have this thing with Shirogorovs. If I can break the detent, I know it's going to open. I'm not so sure about this one, but here we go. Well, there we are. Took me a little while to get my finger into place, but the minute I was there and I gave it a push, out it popped. It's just something about Shirogorovs. It's almost like a magic dust that is in them. As soon as that detent breaks, you know it's going to flip open, and you know it's going to lock hard and solid. And this knife is absolutely no exception. So we've got a very typical Shirogorov blade. There's not a lot of fancy grinding work in there. It's almost a full flat knife. There's just enough grind work in there to let you know that this is done by a master. We have this sort of swedge that fades back into the full width of the knife as it goes out from the handle. You have a little bit of really not too aggressive jimping, which I think is more of a style thing. These days you've got to have jimping, or I don't know. Personally, I could live without it quite easily. But it's there. So it's an elegant blade, and I actually quite like this the plunge grind on them. I think it's just attractive. There isn't a typical sharpening choil, but just the way that's ground and the angle it's ground at, this would be a doddle to sharpen without giving it a smile or catching that the plunge line. It's just really nicely done. M390 steel, which is probably my favourite at the moment. I know everybody wants Magna Cut. I've only had, I think, one Magna Cut knife, and I hated it. I didn't hate it because it was Magna Cut. I just hated it because it was a horrible knife. So, yeah, the M390 is a sort of steel of choice. Or, of course, I'm quite happy with 20CV, which is pretty much the same recipe. Just for size here, This is the Hogue Decker. Let's move that up a little bit. A little bit more room. This is similarly sized to the Decker. It's almost identical in size. There might be a fraction more on the blade, and maybe a fraction less in the handle, but not much. It's pretty close. I don't think the perspective of my camera does it plays it fair, but the blades are very similar. There's more cutting edge though in the Shirogorov. Shirogorov manages to do a thing where the cutting edge is as long as or longer than the blade. So generally speaking, if you're measuring the full length of the blade, you'll go to somewhere about here, the furthest point that the handle gets to, and you'll measure to the point. When you're measuring the cutting edge, you generally measure from the point back to here. Well, that distance there is ever so slightly longer than that distance there, and that's unusual. Most knives are the other way around. The length from there to there on a Sebenza is greater than the length from there to there. And they do that so that it's easy enough to sharpen. With having the thumb studs, it does make life, give them an extra problem in that sharpening stones are going to catch on those studs, so you have to make sure there's enough room. Whereas there are no studs here, and that plunge line is just the right angle that you could get in there and get this nice and sharp without doing it any harm. It's a nice sort of drop point shape. Nothing to write home about, but it's just perfect for use. Again, nicely with there's a nice thing with Shirogorov. You've just got the two screws. They are proprietary screws, but you don't need a special tool. You can just use an ordinary screwdriver. Probably want to cover it with something just to make sure you don't mar the finish. But then I've never taken one of these knives to bits, so I don't know. You get a nice little lanyard ring there. I always find lanyards useful just for getting knives in and out of my pocket, so I tend to put one on. It's part of the backspacer, which has this sort of, it's not really jimping, it's just some mechanical looking finish to it, which again I think is more of a design cue than a sort of grip enhancer. Nice and open design otherwise, and I say the front is solid carbon fibre. There's no liner inside that at all. On the frame side, the spring obviously needs to be something a bit tougher, so it has a full titanium. It's got the relief cut on the outside, which you know what I think of that. There's no point in going on about it, flogging a dead horse. I'd love to know though if there's a knife designer would like to come on and explain why that's better from a manufacturing or design or engineering point of view, because presumably there's a reason for it, because it's just downright ugly. And the original Chris Reeves knives had the cutout on the inside. So there we go. I don't know if there's any internal milling on that titanium frame. I can't see any, but in a way it's a bit irrelevant because you've got that inlay, which is the machining away. It is the lightning cut that you might have made inside. It's made on the outside and then filled with a piece of carbon fibre that weighs, I presume, practically nothing. Nice flat sides to the screws on this side as well. Obviously it's an overtly right-handed knife, but being a liner lock again, it can be used left-handed without too much trouble. It's just the clip and the fact that the show side has this, relatively attractive carbon fibre, and if you're holding it in your left hand, you're seeing the working side of the knife, where all the business is done. Normally that's at the back, so nobody sees it, but of course if you hold it in your left hand, that's there for everyone to see. As is usual with Shirogorovs, the billboarding is very, very muted. We've got the little Russian there. It doesn't say Shirogorov anywhere on it, and there's no other sort of markings or anything. So if you know, you know. Otherwise, you pick this knife up and it just feels great. It works great. It's got a lovely action on it. The flipper isn't too dramatic. Like I say, my sole issue with this knife really is that it's just a little small for me to operate. Anyway, that's me. If you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. I was supposed to say that at the beginning, but I forgot. If you want to see more of it, please subscribe, ring the bell, and comment. Comments apparently make a bigger difference to the algorithm than anything else. So, we'd love to hear from you. See you again. Bye.